Brambro back with Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts, our France 1890 campaign on Legendary difficulty. How do we build the fleet we need tomorrow while also maintaining the fleet we need today on a peacetime budget? Every Navy, whether in game or in real life, has to answer this question continuously. That's the theme of this episode. Whether I do it effectively or not, you be the judge. In any case, going to be a lot of ship design stuff in this episode. Let's hop in. Just logged into Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts to record some gameplay, and we are in yet another update. We are in 1.08.8. I'm not going to read every single one of these, but you can pause it here to have a look. There's the fixes. And scroll a little bit for all of the balances and improvements. Things that kind of jumped out at me here were improved further the auto design and its speed and effectiveness of its designs. Well, we'll see about that. Ship maintenance increased further. They keep trying to balance by driving the maintenance costs up. Slight armor weight adjustments. Which probably means I've got some designs that I'm going to have to, that we've all got some designs that we're going to have to fiddle with a little bit because they're coming in overweight. Well, we'll see how that works out. And then there is a new feature here. Crew healing and salvage techs. Researching survivability allows options to improve the amount of casualties that become restored after combat. Not yet fully working. So that might be interesting. Anyway, I thought it was worth bringing that to y'all's attention. Okay, so the theme of the last episode was the modernization and reorganization distribution of the French fleet. Following that, I went ahead and designed a new battleship on the Battleship 2 hull to about 16,000 tons. I initially started off camera just to see if it was feasible to get those double turrets onto it, and kept fiddling with it and wound up with a finished design. So not going through the design process for that one. Let's just see what we got here. It is the Duquesne-class 2 double turrets, 12.9 inch, 16,054 tons, and they cost about 13 million apiece. Let's have a look at them. So it turns out this hull was a little awkward to work with. Yeah, you get all the tonnage, however, this hull comes with quite a bit of elevated deck structure above the main deck, right? This big platform here, this big platform, that's all part of the hull, right? That takes up a lot of space, and it creates a lot of restrictions into where you can place things. You know, you can't put towers on top of these, for example. So the forward tower has to go quite far forward, and same with the aft tower. As a matter of fact, the highest level, the best available forward tower doesn't even fit on this hull because of these platforms, specifically this platform. No matter what I did with beam and draft and all that sort of thing, could not get the best available tower onto it. So this is the second best tower, and it has to go all the way up here. This is as far aft as it possibly goes, because this bit here is part of the tower structure, and it butts right up against this platform. So that leaves a lot of dead space up on the main deck. You know, I mean, you could put a few secondary mounts on them, and that's about it. Can't do much with this area, and then of course there's a lot of options for funnels, and that helps out with balancing the ship. In any case, this is pretty much what I wound up with. 16,000 tons. Not yet at a point where this is still essentially an evolutionary, not a revolutionary design. We don't have advanced propulsion yet. And to me, the break point in that regard is turbine engines. The jump from steam expansion to turbine engines that's where the speed of capital ships, to me, starts to ramp up, as was the case historically. The real life HMS Dreadnought, of course, and we all know the story with revolutionary design, made every other battleship in the world immediately obsolete overnight. And of course, the primary reason for that was the gun layout, the all big gun concept. But that wasn't the only reason. The other big breakthrough on HMS Dreadnought was using steam turbine engines. That was also as significant. I'm not going to go quite as far as to say equally as important, but pretty darn close. Maybe like a 60-40 proportion of importance. Now, it's not that a steam turbine engine is a small, light piece of equipment. It is not. But it is way smaller and lighter than expansion steam engines. There's very few expansion engine ships still out there as museum ships or whatever. The only one that comes to mind that I have seen is USS Olympia in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it's one of those kind of things where you get it, you've seen the pictures, you've seen the diagrams, intellectually one understands the concept, but it's not the same as seeing it. And I remember walking on board Olympia and just being flabbergasted at not only, it's not just the weight, it's the internal volume. Those expansion engines take up so much space, cubic volume within the hull. And so turbine engines, big deal. Not only are they more efficient, allowing more speed, but and lighter, but they just take up less space. And that's a lot more internal volume that goes to magazines, crew quarters, additional weapon systems, whatever. So we don't have turbines yet. And I talked about all that just to say, I didn't really go for a speed increase. This is still an 18-knot ship, and that will, she only needs to interoperate with the other battleships, which are also 18-knotters. Kept some range on her for power projection reasons. Mini bulkheads, gave her a little bit extra beam, a little bit less draft. That's just to help stability and help with accuracy, but I didn't go to extremes for either one of those. Standard crew quarters. Most of the components we're still restricted on. We just don't have too many options available. She does have the best available armor, that is nickel steel. I gave her a double bottom. We're starting to get, we're not there yet, but these ships I think are still going to be in service during the time period when these torpedo ranges are going to start expanding beyond the 1 kilometer threat that we're facing right now. Reinforced bulkheads, that's the best we have available. She's got a Citadel. I gave her the anti-flood. We did pick that up at one point in tech. Standard ratio on main shells. Max HE on secondaries, of course. I'm always going to do that. I think these are the best available shell types we have. Heavy shell size, increased ammo. I've talked about why I do these before. And she's going to fire as fast as she can, and the only rangefinder we've unlocked so far is the Coincidence 1. There's our armor layout. I tend to go for a, reasonable numbers for the box, as it were, as opposed to, you know, the Citadel in the current version of the game is a slightly different thing. And then I tend to go fairly light on the fore and aft. Probably more than many players do. I like a good bit of superstructure. And then 12.9 fully lengthened main armament, 4.9 fully lengthened secondaries. And this hull does have a lot of pretty nice secondary placements all along the gunnels with very nice fields of fire. So 4.9 is all along in here. I think she's well armed for secondaries. And the presence of these nice mounts here on this sloping hull, which is, you know, kind of a French characteristic. The presence of all these mounts kind of makes it less of a benefit that you have these deck platforms up here on which I could have put yet more of these mounts, but it just felt like overkill. I was pretty happy with what we had. She is going to have a bit of an accuracy penalty because of the double barrels, but basically, and for that reason, I don't think she's going to be quite as accurate as the single turret other classes that we have, the Normandies and the Solferinos. But she's going to make up for that with basically double the firepower. So I think this is a pretty strong ship, and it's very possibly, when these get commissioned, approximately a year and a half from now, it's a 16-month build time, these might be the largest battleships in Europe. Don't know. We'll have to see. Queens of the Med, or the North Atlantic, as the case may be. There are a couple things I don't love about this ship. One of them is her smoke interference is pretty substantial, and that's just for 58.7% engine efficiency, right? I mean, if I had low, so I'm kind of caught where neither engine efficiency nor smoke interference is very good. And if I just move to make one better, then I just make the other that much worse. And so this was kind of the compromise I came up with. I think part of that is probably due to the fact that I wasn't able to use the best possible tower on this particular hull. That's probably a contributor to that. She does have a pretty tight turning circle at 270 meters. I think that's pretty good for a battleship. Her flash fire chance isn't great. We're at almost 40%. And yeah, I took the heavy shell size and the increased ammo. We just don't have too many non-volatile options yet for propellant and bursting charge. That's a factor. I did put the barbette on her. And other than that, just have to hope that our main belt, our citadel, and our main deck are going to be enough to prevent hitting those areas where a flash fire might occur anyway. So I don't know. That might turn into an Achilles heel for this ship. We'll just have to find out at some point, probably several episodes into the future. In any case, there you have it. That is the Duquesne-class Battleship. And I went ahead and ordered building 2 of them, the Duquesne and the Suffren. And they are being constructed at La Rochelle on the Atlantic coast. Now, as far as the implications for force structure, that's another 2 battleships. If I were to make a 6th bat group to have 3 in the Med and 3 in the Atlantic coast, that would necessitate building another 4 cruisers. I think our budget situation is such that I don't want to do that right now. So I think what is more likely to happen is once these battleships come into commission, I think what's most likely to happen is that the 2 battleships who are here now, who are the Démocrate and the Revanche, I might mothball those. And Duquesne and Suffren will take their place in this bat group. That's one option. That's still a year and a half away. Just have to see how it works out. The construction of those ships, plus the ongoing refit of all of our heavy cruisers to coincidence rangefinders, we are running a monthly minus 10 million. So I need to keep an eye on this and see how that flattens out. That's pretty substantial. I think for now I'm going to drop tech down to 80. That actually isn't doing very much. I'm going to go to 75. That'll save us a couple million there. 75 million, I mean, I can't say it is an absolute hard floor. There may be times in the future where I feel like I need to go below that. But it's a pretty firm floor. I don't think that there's any documentation, but there's an idea out there among the player base that I've heard or read in other places where people just kind of have the feeling that roughly 75% tends to be maybe about where the AI puts tech, at least on average. And as long as you're at above 75%, you'll grow that tech lead. But if you're below 75%, I guess maybe some people find, ooh, you know, they tread water or they actually fall behind. So I'm going to go 70. We have a gap now. I'm hoping that we at least maintain the current advantage, if not grow it, but maintain it at 75% for a little while until we get back into a war and the money coffers, you know, the money spigot opens back up. Okay. I spent a lot of time in the last episode. I was trying to be efficient in only popping in to give a kind of a snapshot every 6 months. That still ate up a lot of time. And so I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'm going to proceed ahead. I am going to start putting ships out into the West Med and see if we can maybe provoke a war with Italy. So I picked up a tech which allowed a little bit more tonnage on torpedo boats. Did not pick up a new hull. I just popped in here to see what was possible with that slightly more available tonnage. And I've created a new torpedo boat design, and it's not a huge improvement over the Carquois/Sabre class that we have now. It's got about the same number of guns, but they're arranged a little bit better. What the slightly more tonnage did enable on the same hull was I could put guns on the aft half of the ship now, instead of clustering them all right together right up by the pilot house. Okay, so she's got 5 guns, 3 3.9-inch mounts centerline, and then I was able to tuck some little 2.2s right here in this little wing position. Not enough room in here to lengthen them, so they're just 2.2s. Still the single torpedo tube, but the other thing about this design compared to the Carquois is it is significantly faster. 31.9 knots was about the break point, right? Every hull kind of has that point where you increase just a tenth of a knot and then boom, it just goes out of whack. Like at 32, boom, 370 tons. Yeah. So 31.9 it is. There we go. And it still had a fair amount of available tonnage. You can't armor these things. And because of that, you can't use armor to tweak their balance either. So the 0.2% forward weight offset is actually pretty good. And I didn't really know what else to do with this. I just gave it a bunch of range, right? Increase operational usefulness, increase probability of convoy raids, favorable naval missions, maintenance penalty in distant travels. So this is an additional class. I don't intend to go and wholesale replace all of our torpedo boats with this design. It's not a big enough improvement, but I'll build a few of these. Now that all of our heavy cruisers have completed their refits and have coincidence rangefinders, they're available for operations. So what I'm doing right now is I am pushing our Mediterranean fleet out to sea, and I'm putting them, I don't know if this matters or not, but I'm putting them pretty close to major Italian ports. One battle group off of La Spezia and Livorno, one battle group off Gaeta, and one battle group off Palermo. I'm also pushing out this light cruiser group out of Tunis, just out into the sea region. They're all on sea control mode, which the tooltip says is the most provocative of the various modes. The Atlantic fleet, I'm not sorting them over yet, nor am I doing anything with the surge light cruisers at Gibraltar or with our light cruiser group in the East Med. So we'll see what that gets us for increased power projection and provocation to the Italians. That is boosting our monthly deficit a pretty good bit by doing that. I don't know if I really needed to build those torpedo boats or not. Individually, they're not that much, but I'm building 12 of them. That's a few million there. And then, of course, we're spending a good chunk of money on building those two Duquesne-class battleships. So we've run about 2 years now. It is July 1896. The efforts to provoke tensions with Italy came to absolute zero. Had a bunch of task forces out here in the West Med. Italy didn't care. That was about the long and short of that. Nor did anybody else, for that matter. And I was spending a lot of budget on sea control that wasn't doing anything. So I pulled all the ships back in. They're all back in their home ports. And I've got a little bit of a dilemma here in that on a peacetime budget, I've got about as big a navy as I can barely afford. All of the task forces are in port, but some of the reserve ships, which weren't very many, I've gone ahead and mothballed them. And that's basically all of our backup torpedo boats in Toulon. Individually, not a big difference, but there's a big group of them. I think there's like 24 extra torpedo boats, maybe 30. 18. I'm not sure. 6. Oh, right. There's 18 at Toulon, and then there's another 6 in mothballs at Brest. And then the Duquesne-class battleships, just the pair of them, they did complete. They're at La Rochelle, and so I've mothballed a couple of battleships as well. So I also dialed, I think we've seen earlier that I dialed the tech down a little bit. That turned out not to work out so well because at 75%, we actually kind of dipped back into average. So I've popped that back up to 85%, and just now, literally this month, we're now considered advanced again. So it looks like kind of need to keep it at 85 or maybe 80, but I've got it at 85% to maintain that tech edge. 75 didn't do it. We fell back. Starting to increase it a little bit now. And we're running about almost 2 million in the red. So I'm kind of in this little box where in order to do much of anything, I need to start scrapping ships. I'm not a big fan of doing that. I don't feel like the other countries have moved far enough ahead that it's time to start thinking about scrapping our beginning designs, which there's been some refits and some crossover copies and this, but basically we're still with our starting designs, with the exception of a couple of 2 pairs of battleships, and then another class of torpedo boats. Really haven't gotten the needle to move on relations. Actually, we're increasing in relations with Italy. So once again, the country I most want to pick a fight with, I'm unable to pick a fight with. However, relations are deteriorating with Austria-Hungary. And that is largely because Austria has gone in, where are those buggers? They've decided that they want to come out here and park their entire battle line. The vast majority of their fleet has been hanging out in the West Med, and that has been driving relations down between France and Austria. Strangely, the Italians seem totally cool with it. They're not dropping relations with Italy, just with us, and occasionally with Britain somehow. Speaking of Britain, the war between Germany and Britain did eventually end. Now, you don't really get a pop-up notification of that the way you do when they go to war. It just, this window disappeared, and both countries are, now got positive GDP growth again. Britain did not come. Britain lost that war. Germany came out of it, with good public opinion and naval prestige, whereas Britain did not. They actually came out of that war with unrest for public opinion and despise for naval prestige, where they remain. They have come back up a little bit on public opinion. Germany has pretty quickly reconstituted its fleet. It's now the largest navy in Europe at 118 ships, and they are building 22 more. Britain's navy, despite the fact that they have the largest GDP, the largest naval budget, and the largest built-up surplus of naval funds, and let's see, I think they've got the highest growth as well. Despite all of that, Britain's fleet remains at 53 ships, and they are not building or refitting anything. I'm not quite sure how to interpret that, but the Royal Navy is having some problems. Things are very slowly trending toward an eventual war with Austria-Hungary right now. And I think for budget reasons, I think I'm just going to let things percolate toward that without spending a lot of extra money on sending ships to sea and task forces and all that sort of thing. Try to maintain the fleet pretty much where it is, and try to grow this tech edge again, do some refits along the way. It might be quite a while. It might be 1900 before we have a war. One thing that will help the budget a little bit is that, we're doing another batch of shipyard expansion that we're almost done with. Once this is complete, that'll help the budget pressure a little bit. And that'll put us at 23,500 tons, which is a pretty good number, I think, for the 1890s. And I'm not going to feel completely pressured. I'm not going to feel compelled to go straight into another shipyard expansion cycle. I may let that rest for a couple of years. And that's kind of where we're at in mid-1896. Not only was I not able to provoke a war with Italy, but there's not really a war imminent with anybody. And so it's just kind of peacetime operations and trying to keep the Navy up to snuff. We are well into 1897. War is not imminent. It's not even remotely approaching with anybody. Every once in a while, the Austrian battle fleet comes through, we lose a couple points, and then they go back home. War's not coming anytime soon. What is, matter of fact, that seems to be true for everybody. The closest anybody is to war are Britain and Italy, which seems a little odd. But even they aren't on the verge either. What is happening is that the other powers are designing new ships, scrapping a bunch of old ships, building a bunch of new ships, so the navies are changing. And even though we have a tech advantage, I kind of feel like that maybe the other navies are putting their tech into new designs a little bit better. So I'm thinking the thing to do now is need to start thinking about these initial campaign start designs. It may be time for some of them to go. And we've picked up some new techs and some new hulls, specifically for battleships, that I think bear looking at. It won't be the entire program, but I'm thinking of building a new battleship design, or designing a new battleship and building a couple. And I think I recognize now I made a pretty bad mistake with the initial cheap heavy cruiser, and I need a new design for those as well. For one thing, they're not really getting the job done on power projection. I think I kind of messed that up a little bit somehow, and I made a pretty bad gaffe with their armor. So, okay, first thing I'm going to do here is a replacement heavy cruiser, and this is going to be pretty much just an evolution. It is going to be extremely similar to our existing heavy cruiser. The exception is it's going to be significantly larger. It's about 6,000 tons instead of 4,500. I believe that that's going to allow us to put some heavier secondaries onto the hull. And she's going to have significantly better armor protection. Other than that, she's more or less going to be the same ship. More or less. Which means keeping the 21 knots. We're looking to get a lot of power projection out of these, so I'm maxing the range. Willing to go mini on the bulkheads. I know I can increase range by increasing the draft. However, that gives me tonnage problems, and I can only counteract that by reducing the beam, and I just don't want to do that. These things do have to fight. If what I'd like to do is be able to increase them both, but that gets us back down into a... In any case, I'm just leaving them 0. That's all I need to say. Coal, natural boilers, staying with the basic engine. I do want the unbalanced rudder. I think I've only... Well, let's see. I'm just going to stay with steam. Steering. Does hydraulic increase cost? Yes. Yes. I'm just staying with steam engineering. How much to cost? Ooh, that adds a lot of engine cost per weight. Leave the aux off. And this is the mistake that I made on the initial cruiser. I left it at iron plate, thinking that that would save cost. What I had forgotten, I knew this, but I had forgotten, is it actually significantly degrades armor strength, right, by 25%. So if you think you had, so if you have 4 inches of armor, you don't. You have an effective 3 inch. So those initial cruisers they're pretty brittle, and I knew that. I had simply forgotten it when I designed them. So we're going to go compound with that. Yes, it does add cost just like the other armor upgrades do. However, that's worth doing, even for a cheapo cruiser. I think we can go reinforced bulkheads. I don't think that adds that. Well, it does some. I'm going to go ahead and put it on. I don't think it adds that much cost. Okay. And the goal is to arrive at something like in the same ballpark of cost per ton as we had on the initial cruiser. And I think we'll be pretty close to that. All right. Let's go something like 6 on the main. These can be messed with later if we need to adjust. Okay, I think it's a pretty good starting argument there. Do want the best towers available. I'm just going to go with 2 funnels here. I know it's not great for engine efficiency, and that hurts. That does hurt range as well. The engine efficiency. Let me find the tooltip. Yeah. The 51.2% engine efficiency is dropping our operational range a little bit. However, I got to balance that against the darn, we're at 52 smoke interference, we're crying out loud. And that's just the way it's going to be in the 1890s. Because, well, it's going to be, I don't think that's really going to start significantly coming down until we get out of coal fuel. Not to mention some better funnels. This is the best funnel we got. I'm going to stay with the same armament, just the plain old 6.9. I'm not looking for a huge firepower upgrade. Let's go ahead and get the caliber and length taken care of before we actually place them. I only recently caught on that one can do this. Select the turret here in this last stage of the component menu, and then you can change the characteristics on it before you actually go place it. I was placing them and then going back later. I like doing it this way better. That way you know right when you place it and then don't have to move it around again. I think we had 1 forward, 1 aft, and 1 midships on the earlier design, so we'll go with that. Trying to get these firing arcs about evened out there, and that's fine right there. Okay. Now, one thing that the increased tonnage is going to get us is I can bump up these secondaries from 3.9s, which is what they are on the wall decks, and I can go 4.9. And I'm only, the increased firepower is only half the reason I'm doing that. The other reason is because the 4.9 mounts can be armored, whereas the 3.9s cannot. So the initial cruisers, the Valdeck secondaries are all, you know, unarmored and therefore vulnerable, whereas these 4.9s, in addition to having more firepower, they'll have some protection as well. So we'll do something like, and it doesn't have to be enormous, something about the same as the superstructure I think is signed. Let's go like 3.5, see how that, well, 2.2 is as high as it can go, so they're max armored, if you will. Let's just go kind of 1.5 on top. Okay. And I think that pretty much does it. I think we can boost our armor up a little bit. Let's go to 6.5 on the main belt. Now it is plus 35%, so you know this is more like an effective 8.5, about 8.5 inches of armor. Let's go 2 and 2 on the fore and aft. Maybe another main deck. Boost that conning tower up. Oh, 4.3 is max. Yeah, I'd forgotten that. Main guns. Let's go with 8. Oh, they're max armored at 7.8. Fine. I'd like to have the barbette thickness at least as much as the main belt, so that it's not a weak spot. Okay. I've got plenty of deck space here. I'd have room for another funnel. I just don't want the smoke from another funnel. However, I wonder if I can manage another. Let's move that forward just a little bit. I know there's a way just to copy it from another. I can never remember the key. It's going to let me get away with that. Oh, the firing arcs. That's pretty awesome. Okay, well, we are going to get some significant firepower enhancement with this class. We've still got almost 300 tons to play with. Let's armor up a little bit more. 3-inch main deck. I'm not at it. Oh, I need to get the coincidence range finder on. Well, yeah. I may not be able to afford that turret after all. Barbette, got reinforced bulkheads. I'm not spending money on anti-flood or citadel. I think I'm going to go standard ratio on the 6.9s. We'll leave the 4.9s at HE. That's fine. Well, what, semi or standard? Yeah, I don't know. You get a lot more damage, but you also lose a ton of pen. It's almost like making it into a pseudo HE round. I think I'm going to stay standard on the AP. Go heavy. My ongoing philosophy has been that these ships are probably going to fight outnumbered a fair amount. Although we didn't really run into that a whole lot in the Anglo-French War. Still going to go increased. We've got white powder available, but it adds to flash fire chance. I'm already going with heavy and increase, so I'm going to leave that the way it is. Kind of a similar situation with gun cotton. I mean, in terms of their buffs, both the white powder and the gun cotton are improvements. If I used them, I think this thing would just turn into a giant powder keg. And we're already a little bit overweight. I'm not going to go with the enhanced reloading. And yeah, I got to bring this armor back down a little bit. Let's go back down to 2.5 on the deck. 6.5 on the belt. That's pretty close. I think we're just about there. We do have some aft weight offset. Let's see if we can scooch that funnel up a little bit without messing up that turret's firing arc too much. Okay, I think that's still okay. That helped a good bit. Whoa, 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 whoa. Well, crap. Okay, these 4.9s are going to have to go. I don't want to leave these empty though. I'll go ahead and put a couple 3.9s here. Okay. Yeah, maybe let's I think you can live with that firing arc. Okay, I think we can shave the rest of that weight offset with some armor. Oh, man, that has us real close. Sold. Okay, we've got her balanced out. She's below 20% for both pitch and roll. We've got more 6.9, we've got 4.9. We have better quality armor, still at an acceptable cost. We can probably ease this back up to 7-inch main belt. And we'll just leave a few tons there for slop for future refits. Yeah, I think that's a pretty nice improvement over the Toulon / Valdeck cruiser. About $3 million, which is more expensive than the other cruiser, but at heavier tonnage, we're still paying about $500 per ton. So she is still fulfilling her purpose of cheap power projection tonnage with a 13.6 thousand kilometer range. Same speed, so she's still interoperable with the older cruisers. It'll take a while to phase these in. And this is the Caiman-class. All right. Let's take a look at doing a new battleship. So this is the Battleship 1 hull. This is the hull upon which the mainstay of our battle line is built, the Normandy. The ironclad hull, we've got two of these. Those are the Solferinos. The Duquesne-class from the beginning of the episode is built on the Battleship 2 hull. That's this guy right here. And I made a mention about these deck platforms get in the way. I hadn't quite caught on to exactly how these work into the design. So I may, and then maybe off camera, I may go back and refit that battleship design as well. Since then, however, over the course of this episode, a couple of developments we've had. Number one, we increased the capacity of our shipyards up to 23,500 tons, and we picked up 3 new battleship hulls. Battleship 3 and 4 are fairly similar to Battleship 2 in terms of their size, but we also have Battleship 5. Look at this thing. Obviously much larger, can go up to 21,500 tons. Actually, I think with some beam and draft crap, maybe even bigger than that. It's obviously going to be more expensive. Do I need this ship? Can I afford this ship? I don't know the answers to those questions. Can I possibly resist designing and building this ship? I know the answer to that question. No, I cannot. Okay. Okay, she's at max displacement now, 21,500 tons. Now, it's still a pre-Dreadnought. It's still an evolutionary design, although it's a pretty big evolution. So I am not going to try to make her faster. I'm going to go 18 knots with her. And even if I build some, this isn't going to completely replace all our other battleships before the Dreadnought era comes along. So she, still needs to be interoperable with them. So we're just going to keep the battleship standard speed at 18 knots. I would like to build some more range into it if I can compared to the others. I feel like our battleships aren't quite giving us as much power projection as they should. I already know it. I'm just going to go with mini bulkheads as a weight and cost compromise. Nope. I'll leave it at maximum, but that's going to be one area where I go. Okay, I'd like her to be beamy if I can. That will help improve accuracy. I like dropping draft a little bit for the same reason, because that also improves stability and helps with gun accuracy. However, I don't want to mess with the range. So I'm going to leave draft at 0 for now and see how that gets us. See, yeah, our max displacement has already gone above 21.5. We're at 22,000 now. I don't want her to have the minimum crew. Let's go with standard crew. Obviously got to stay with, I need all this stuff. I'm going to go with the better engine. I'm going to put all the bells and whistles on it, right? We've got our tech advantage, so let's build the most technologically advanced BB we can here. May have to come back and make some compromises, but for now, let's just put it all on. And interestingly, we've only had Citadel 1 up till now, which is a little bit of an inner deck. This thing not only unlocks us all the way to Citadel 3, but you can't even go Citadel 1 or 2. It's just 3. That's it. It's that or nothing. So we got a pretty good Citadel on this ship. That alone is going to be a major upgrade over previous BB designs, including the Duquesne, which did not have that available. Okay, I don't know what these are going to wind up being, but let's try going with 12 for the main belt. We can drop these down to 3. Just looking at it, I can already tell that the main guns are going to be so far forward and aft that it's really just the tips, the very, you know, just the corner of the stern and the tip of the bow is all that this pertains to. That it's going to be one big Citadel, main belt, main deck, which is probably going to cause some weight issues. 5. For that same reason, I'm just going to skimp a little bit on the 4.5 decks as well. Let's do 16 on the conning tower. I'm always going to want some fair amount of superstructure. See if we can get away with 3 inches. Now let's have us a hefty Citadel. She's going to be a big target, so she's going to get hit. What are we doing for weight? I haven't even put anything on, and I've only got about 5,000 tons left. Okay. Best front tower, please. And it's way forward. Best secondary tower. Okay. Funnels. Can I shoehorn a funnel in there? No. It's just entering argument. We'll move the funnels around where we need to. I suspect that one's going to come aft quite a bit. No well, even if I had barbettes, we don't have any place to put them. Main guns. And I'm going to do something here that is counterintuitive and feels weird even to me. I am going to drop the main gun armament back down to 11 inch. And the reason I'm doing that is because these, I've also picked up the Mark II 11 inch, whereas the 12s are still Mark I. Let's just look at the accurate, just say 5,000 meters. 1.9 for the 12, 2.5 for the 11. So normally if they're the same quality, the 12 will be a little bit better than the 11. In this case, the 11 is significantly more accurate. And if we go 11.9 inch gun, I think that's still going to be plenty enough oomph for pre-Dreadnought opponents. So I'm going to go with that. If I had foreseen that coming, I may not have upgunned all of those Normandy-class battleships. Okay, let's max the caliber and length. I think this is going to be okay, even though it feels like a step down. It's a smaller gun, but it's a better gun. Will that fit up here? Just barely, but it's got that one spot where it fits, and it's actually got a pretty good firing arc. Okay. And here's where this hull gets fun. Secondary guns. Let's see, we got a... I think 6, which is basically the same gun that we're using on the heavy cruisers. See what we're doing here. They've still got pretty good firing arcs in this configuration. The other option is you can put one on each one of these sponsons, and it has a better firing arc. But doing it this way, you have 3 per side. Doing it this way, there's 6 per side. And even though the firing arcs aren't quite as good, they overlap well enough that there's a pretty nice firing arc where you've got all 6 of these putting rounds down range. So basically 6 gun barrels. That's basically the main armament of the Waldeck heavy cruiser as secondaries on one side, in addition to the battleship main armament. I think this thing is going to murder any cruiser that comes within range with impunity. And also worth noting, even with all these turrets out here on these sponsons, it really is not hurting the roll very much at all. That's pretty interesting. Okay, now you can't do that. And that brings us to these upper decks, these upper levels. And man, there are so many mounts on here, and you can just, this thing is just bristling with secondaries. That's the idea of this hull, I think. It's like the anti-dreadnought, right? Lots of different calibers of guns, but a tremendous amount of firepower. And so for these, I think, yeah, see, look at that. You can put 3 of these on here. And yeah, I see up there that we've run into some weight issues. I think it'll be fine. Now, a third way to play it is to not have these larger secondaries down on the lower sponsons. There's actually 3 mounts there. I'm not going to do it, but the other way that this could be played is you could do this. And then you can, yeah. So you could just really just go massive with the little guns like this, which I think would be another fun design. I'm not going to do that though. I'm going to keep these 6.9s. Okay, well, we got some issues here. First thing is we got a tremendous amount of forward weight offset, so we need to move the propulsion plant back. That's pretty close. We're right there. Okay. And we need to find, actually not that much, only about 350 tons or so. 400 tons. We need to plop on a couple more components though. We need barbette. Someone made a comment on a recent video in this series that, you know, barbettes are worthless. I didn't understand that. Minus ammo det, minus flash fire, minus flash fires. I don't really understand why there's a view out there that barbettes are not useful. And they don't add that much cost in weight, really. So, yeah. Okay. Also, I've got so many guns on here. I'm not feeling the need for firing faster. And I'm going to go the heavy shells. I don't want the semi. You know, if I need to be armor piercing, then, you know, it just feels weird to be giving up a lot of penetration on an AP shell, so I'm just not going to do it. Now, if there were a way to differentiate between mains and secondaries on the shell types, that would be a different kettle of fish, right? If I could go with standard AP on the mains, but SAP on secondaries, okay, something like that would be worth thinking about. I'm going to go standard ratio on the mains, and with the 6.9s, I'm not going to go down to standard, but I'm going to do just the increased HE. Let them have a little bit more AP when they're firing at cruisers. Staying with the brown powder and the black powder for the reasons I talked about with the cruiser. Okay. Well, and here we are. I said I'd be willing to drop to mini. That's going to get us... Actually, that got us almost all the way where we need to be. Right there. Wonder if I could do it by just increasing the beam a little. No, not really. I don't mind that I can put a little bit more beam on it though. And I think we did narrow the gap. Now I just need to find another 150 tons. I don't really want to give up any of this armor. I think I need to sacrifice a component somewhere. And just like the Citadel, this is anti-flood 3. That's it. I can't shave it back down to anti-flood 2 or 1. It's either one or the other. If I could, I would shave it down to anti-flood 2, and that would probably get us there. Not an option. Which leaves me with, do I really need a double hull? What is the resistance on this hull? We're above 100 resistance as is. If I dropped a single hull, and the other thing that we need to look at is the torpedo resistance, which should be... Okay, so we're at plus 4% torpedo damage received with the double hull. Plus 12%. And that drops the resistance to still right at 100. The resistance I'm fine with. The extra 8% of torpedo damage I don't like. However, for probably the next decade or so, are any torpedo boats getting close enough to shoot their short-range torpedoes against this? I'm going to roll the dice. It's a little bit of a vulnerability, but let's see what happens. Do I want increased ammo? I thought it would say on here someplace how many of the ammo. 240. And what's our flash fire chance? Currently at 25. If we go increased, that puts it at 20. That's not much. Okay, I can live with that. It's below 30. And can we afford the weight of enhanced reload? Almost. I think I've run out of compromises I'm willing to make, though. I'm not going to shave any more armor. Actually, I need to double check the armor. Am I willing to do that? Willing to drop the barbette down to whatever the main belt is. On the 6.9s, how about shaving superstructure? Boy, that didn't do hardly anything. To the point, I'm just going to put that back. Okay. All right. Standard reload. which gives us about 80 tons of slop. That's room that can be there available for the next refit that will inevitably come. Okay, we have just a tiny bit of aft weight offset. First of all, let's see if just 1/10 of an inch of forebelt will fix that. It does perfectly. Okay, so here you go. This is the, what is it called? Couronne. The Couronne-class Battleship. And is she going to be all that much more deadly against enemy battleships? Debatable with the main armament. But with those secondaries, I think anything less than an enemy battleship just coming within sight of her is going to be in a world of hurt. Well, and those 6.9s aren't going to be worthless even against enemy battleships either. That's a tremendous amount of firepower. I mean, this thing is basically a battleship and a cruiser glued together in terms of its output of damage. So I am liking this ship. They're going to be 16 million apiece. And like I said at the beginning, I don't know if I can afford that. But yeah, looking forward to seeing those in action. And she's still got a pretty fair amount of range too. I think she's going to do better at power projection than our other battleships do as well. And with all these guns, right, the 0 offset, and those are pretty good pitch and roll numbers. So as accurate as a capital ship can be pre-1900, pre-Dreadnought, I think she's got it. Happy with it. Can I afford to buy any of them? And the answer is probably not, but they got to be built, right? Yeah. The BB's a little bit of a luxury. The heavy cruiser really isn't. I am going to start off with 2 of the new kind of pre-Dreadnought. It's almost like a super pre-Dreadnought. I don't know if that's a term or not, but I'm going to do a pair of these that I can't afford. And then we've got about 20 heavy cruisers that I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to fully replace them all, but we need some. I need to buy the Caimans in bulk, if you will. I'm going to put in a build order for 8. I do not believe I will actually be able to have all 8 building at the same time. I have to do some suspensions. Okay. I don't even want to think about what that all did to my budget. Not as bad as I expected. To the point where I'm going to not suspend any of these. Where do I build them? Let's have these 2 new battleships building at Marseille. Let's get 4 of the Caimans building at Toulon. And let's get the other 4 building on the Atlantic coast, so we'll put them in La Rochelle. And that will do for this episode. As I mentioned before, I'd been hoping to get us into or close to a war in this episode. The governments of the 5 powers, 5 naval powers in Europe, saw fit to conduct their affairs otherwise. We got quite a few ships designed, got some building, got some new battleships, 2 different classes of battleships. There's the Duquesnes also. And there you have it. Hopefully we can get closer to a war next time around. If you like what we're doing with the channel, if you like this content, then leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe. If there's other episodes in the series that you haven't seen, I'm linking the playlist here. At any rate, thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it.